Hello, my name's Bette from Bette's Makes, and today we are going to work on a peony. Now this is made with bond paper, as you can see right here. Has a couple of leaves and I've used some wire here. Plus this one has an unusual stamen on the inside, and that's where we're going to start. So this is what today's project is going to look like. Now there's a few tools that you are going to need in order for you to make this same peony. Now I have the rubber covered twist ties that I bought at the dollar store. There were 20 in a package, and this is what they look like. I'm going to use that for the stem because I find that easier than trying to use these thin wires for stems. So that is one part. You're going to need some floral tape. That's an important component because the floral tape is going to hold down all of your leaves. You're going to need glue. Now you can use any type of glue you want. I have a glue stick and I have some tacky glue, and I'll be using both as we work through the project. Another thing that you're going to need is a dowel, but if you have a pen or a pencil that's also round, this is going to be for shaping the leaves. So this is a wooden dowel I got in a package at the dollar store. And once again, you get a number of them. You can make kites with them later. You can do all types of crafts with them. They come in thin or thick. I picked a medium-sized one because I want to be able to curl the ends of my flower like this, but I use the dowel for that. So that's the dowel. You're going to need only 2 pieces of bond paper. I bought this bond paper at Walmart and it came in multicolors. Unfortunately, it didn't have a dark green, but I bought a package that's like a rainbow. It had pink, it had purple, it had blue, green, and that's about all I needed. It didn't have white in it, but I'm not going to be using white for this. Another thing you're going to need is a cotton ball. Now this cotton ball is really important. This is going to form the middle of your flower. That will be the stamens, cotton ball. Now to cover this cotton ball, you're going to need 2 pieces of black crepe paper. You can use tissue paper in the place. These are about 2 inches by 2 inches, just enough to cover the cotton ball. And of course you're going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to need the peony petal pattern, which I have put into my resource library on betsmakes.com. If you go to the resource library, if you're not a member yet, you will need to fill in the form, add your email address, and then you'll be given instant access to that resource library. Now, with the pattern, we're going to have leaves. Today I've chosen a pattern paper, and they're not quite the same as these, but this pattern will give you an idea. I hand cut these ones by themselves. What I usually do is I take this pattern and cut out 2 sets of it. So if you need to pause and cut out your 2 sets, that's perfect. You also need 2 of an outer leaf and 2 of an inner leaf, because we're going to double up on our leaf today. And I'll just bend this out of the way. As you see, I double up on my leaves. I haven't had to use a wire inside this one because the paper is stiff enough. It's not like a crepe paper where you need to reinforce it. I like the double leaves because it gives it a lot more pizzazz when you take a look at the finished product. So I set this aside. I have cut everything except my leaves, so I'm just going to move our template out of the way. So we're going to get started. I'll just move some of this out of the way that I don't need right away. You can use yellow, or you can use the pink or purple or whatever color you really want to do for this particular flower. What I'm going to do now is just simply fold my green almost in half. I'm just going to burnish it a bit here because I like to have a nice easy edge to cut. Since I'm cutting 2, all I need to do is just have it folded over, and you don't have to be right to the end. You just want to make sure you have 2 of them. Let's see if I can cut this without taping it down. I have everything else cut out and ready ahead of time. So you don't have to be perfectly accurate with your cuts, but you want to be close. So I like to turn my things upside down when I'm cutting them. It's sometimes easier. And make it absolutely perfect, but we'll get it close. Just pull out the extra pieces. And we'll get the final bit cut here. And it doesn't matter how long you make the stem. The reason we have the stem is so that it will fit inside here. So by the time I tape it, it has a secure end to it. I'm going to remove some of my pieces of paper here. I have a little scrap bin that I keep handy when I'm doing crafts, so I can quickly throw those away. Now I've got the one leaf ready. Just open it up. I have 2 of those. Now I need 2 of these as well. So I might as well just do it right beside here. This one's a little easier to cut. I should be taping this down to make it really accurate, but I find when the handmade cut flower just using simple tools, it's sometimes easier and it looks more effective when you have that handmade look to it. Now my nose is folded over, so I'm just going to cut a little bit of the end off. So I have my 2 leaves, and I'll just set those aside. I've already pre-cut my petals, and we can put that in the scrap bin, and I'll move this to the side. We don't need our template anymore. So that is the first part. So we have all the pieces all ready to go. So the first thing you want to do when you're creating this flower is to make the stamen. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to open up a little hole inside here, and I'm going to place the stem. Now in order for it to stay there, I'm going to need to add a little glue, and I've got my tacky glue here. Don't need a lot of it, just enough to hold it down. Tacky glue. I always have to make sure I put my cap back on. Now I want to keep this fairly straight because it's going to be easier to deal with. So now I've got the glue inside here. I'm just going to hold it there. Now I'm not going to add any other glue right now, and that's because I just want this to stick, and it'll just take a second or 2 to dry. What we're going to do next, once this is dried, is we're going to add this black. Now it's probably harder to see, but if you can see, I have the black piece of paper. I'm going to add some glue around the edges of this one. Now you could use your glue stick for this one. So I'm just going to add some bits of glue all over the edges, the side, and it doesn't matter if the paper stretches. You're using tissue paper, that's probably easy as well. Now we're going to cover our cotton ball here, so I'm just going to smush it in there. You notice I've got some glue on the edges. Now it's not going to be perfect initially, and the reason I am going to add an extra copy of this, or an extra piece, is because I want to make sure that this doesn't come through the end. Right now I'm just going to add a small amount of floral tape tape this down. See that? And it's just to give it a smooth edge. Make sure it just doesn't come out of place. Now we're going to add a second piece over it just to make sure that it stays solid in place. Now you can use either glue. I've opted to use my glue stick. Now this is a glue stick I also got at the dollar store. And you don't need expensive materials in order to make beautiful flowers. You don't need a cutting machine. You just need your hands, your scissors, your glue. And while I'm talking about that, don't forget to download the top 7 simple and cheap tools you need right away to get started with paper crafting. So once again, I'm going down into the middle, and I'm going to scrunch around the edges, give it something nice and clean. I am going to roll it in. Make a nice bubble out of it here. Just tuck it in tightly. So now we pretty well have our stamen. Now it is glued, but I always like to make sure that everything is going to stay in place, so a small amount of floral tape. If you don't have floral tape, don't worry about it. You can use any kind of tape you want. It's just that these are green and it's going to hold it in place beautifully while you start working on the petals. So yay, there we go. We have finished the center part of the flower, which is this. And now we're going to work on tacking in each of the leaves. Now today I selected, instead of a paper that has colors both sides, I've opted for a paper. It's a pattern paper that I also picked up at the dollar store. It's a beautiful pattern on one side, but it is white on the inside. So when I'm making my flower, I want the pattern on this side and the white on the inside. So if this opens up, it's all white. If you look at it from this side, it'll have a pattern. All you need to do now is you're going to take petals one by one, just like this, one at a time. You're going to glue them down. I have that first one. Take out my glue. And we're going to glue the first one down. Now this is going to take a little while to put all of this together. And I have to decide how tall I want this to go. So I am figuring I will leave approximately ½ an inch or so at the bottom. Now I'm going to keep them straight up initially. And the reason I'm going to keep them straight up is I'm going to curl everything at the end. And I'm not going to curl until I have all of the leaves in place and I have taped it with the floral tape. So that's the first one. Now I want to keep the glue off of my board here, so I am going to take a piece of paper here so that I can do some more gluing. Now you probably don't want to sit there and watch me glue, but I'm going to glue a couple of them and then it's your turn to work on it, and I'll put the video on pause and we will come back once you have all of your leaves. So you can just put us on pause. Now, important for me here is you don't want them behind each other. You want them to go beside each other. So as you're working your way around, so I have another one that's going to come through here. And I know this is this one is 65 pound paper. And gradually you will work all the way through. So I'm going to put all of my leaves on, and when I've got that finished, I will start the video again. So it is your turn to start putting your leaves together. So here we are. I have all of the petals glued onto the bottom. You'll see it's white on the inside and the colors on the outside. I haven't curled it yet. And as I was putting them on, I'd put a little bit of my floral tape just to secure them in place, because even when you glue them, sometimes they will come loose, but you want them all around this particular stamen, and this way nothing is going to happen with the stamen. It's going to stay in place, and yes, it's pretty solid in there, and that's what I was looking at. So we're not going to do anything with this right now, but what we want to do is we want to add our leaves. So we're going to fold them in half as best as possible, especially at one end. Try to get it to the center. There we go. And then this one, same thing. You want to fold it. It's just that it will give a nice shape. And you're going to put one inside the other. I'm going to do it to both of them. and then we're going to tape it to the bottom, and that will be the end of the leaves. And then we're going to go into curling the leaves to make it look more like the peony that I had here. So once again, we're going to do some folding. Try to get as much to the center as you can. Now this time I'm not going to use my glue. I am going to use the floral tape to secure these in place. So it's a matter of deciding where you want it on the bottom. So what I did on this one, I put them down fairly low, but I think on this one I am going to move them up. So the reason we had the long stem is so that you could secure it around here and then you could tape it in place. That might be a bit too high. Let's bring it down just a little bit. So I'm going to take a piece of floral tape and I'm going to tape that into place. I don't need very much of it. So take the first leaf in place. So just at the bottom of the leaf here, I'll secure it. Try to get in there. Don't want to pull too hard because it will come apart. Okay, so now we have the first leaf in place. And the other one's going to go on this opposite side, but it's going to go down a little lower, so I'm going to cut my tape ahead of time here. Nest the two leaves. Inside one another. I'm going to put it on the opposite side, so I'm going to come down a little bit here. You can see the bottom of my leaf is here and the bottom of the other leaf is here. Once I've got them in place where I want them to be, I'm going to add my floral tape. You don't have to be 100% accurate with this because we're going to tape it again. So you just tape it through just so it's secured in place. You've got a little bit showing. Now, before we move everything into place, I'm going to bend my leaves so we get some nice shape going here, and bend this next leaf. Now what we want to do is we want to take the floral tape from here all the way down to the bottom. So this time I'm not going to cut it, but I'm going to start at the very top, secure it in place, and I'm going to start winding it around so we can make sure the leaves stay in place. Now the awkward part is always going between the leaves, but if I turn the leaves around and just hold my tape in place, you'll see I am able to go around and just hold it in place, and then once I hit the bottom of the next leaf, it's really easy to get it all the way down to the bottom. Now I'm lazy, so I'm going to move the plant rather than the tape. Tape twists on me, as it always will. Get it right down to the bottom. As soon as I hit the bottom of the stem, I'm going to cut off a piece. Then I'm going to fold it up and make sure you go in the same direction. So you noticed I was going in this direction. You want to make sure you stay going in that direction, otherwise it will come loose. So now that is secure in place, we have our gorgeous leaves. So those are all ready. So the next job, let me move this out of the way, is to curl the leaves so that you have this effect. Now I need my dowel, and let's see, where did I put my dowel? There it is. Now this is an interesting effect because you're not curling it to the outside, you're curling it to the inside. You want the outside leaves. So what you want to do is take the outside leaves and you're just going to wrap them around. Try to keep as straight as possible so that they come to the inside. Now I know it takes quite a while to get these all done because you want all of them to face to the inside. So I'm going to pause the video while you do that part of it, and then we'll finish off with our peony. So I hope you didn't have any trouble curling up your peony leaves. As you'll see, they'll migrate towards the inside. So what you want to do is be able to pull them apart to So you see some of the white on the inside, but you've got this beautiful color on the outside. Now that's when you use a printed paper, and you'll be able to see the stamen on the inside. You don't have to use a printed paper. You could go back and you could use a single element paper that's colored on both sides. It doesn't really matter because the inside, look at that, I missed one of them. So now I'm just going to have to do a quick roll. So now you have a beautiful paper peony, and you didn't need a cutting machine. What you needed was your template, which you will find on my resource library at betsmakes.com. So that has the pattern for the leaves, and it has the petal patterns. What you need is scissors, some glue, a dowel, floral tape. I have a different kind of glue here, and this is part of the template, and a couple of sheets of paper. This is 2 sheets of paper, and I still had a small amount of the leaf paper left over. Now, if you didn't want to wrap this with floral tape, you could use crepe paper instead. Everything really expensive. Most of the stuff I have here, I did buy at the dollar store. I did not buy my scissors there. I did buy the glue, not this glue, but this glue I did buy there. And the paper you can probably find at the dollar store as well, but I did find mine at Walmart. And the other part, really important for your stem, is you want to be able to use the rubber covered twist ties. But if you're really enthusiastic, you can always get the floral wire, which is pretty thin. It doesn't make a good stem. I find this makes a good stem. I also found in the dollar store a foam wire, and that too can be used for a stem. It's softer on the outside. It does have the wire on the inside. So you can use any of those materials. So I hope you had fun making your peony. I'm going to just fiddle with mine a little bit more to make it come out. And I just love them. So I've got a yellow one now and one with pattern paper. This is using the skinnier cut. This one I cut by hand. The skinnier cut also works out. The only difficulty you will find with this whole project is putting these leaves together and make sure they don't fall off your stem. But other than that, I have another project that we're going to work on in the next few days, and that's going to be doing a lily with 2 sheets of paper. Once again, this will be using some of my top 7 simple and cheap tools you need right away to get started with paper crafting. Please go to my resource library at betsmakes.com and download your patterns. Until next time, happy crafting.